Within hours, the highly anticipated return of one of TV's most beloved shows, Roseanne, canceled, and Roseanne Barr effectively banished from Hollywood.
Hollywood loves a comeback story, but not for everyone. These 19 sitcom stars were once the biggest names on television, but now studios refuse to touch them. We found out why. From an aunt who cost herself millions to a sitcom kid who quit for a wild new life, these are the stars who got canceled. 1. Lori Loughlin.
Full House star Lori Loughlin and her husband are now headed to prison for their roles in the college admissions bribery scandal.
Everyone who grew up in the 80s and 90s knows Aunt Becky from Full House. Lori Loughlin played her for decades, first on the original show and then again on the reboot, Fuller House. She was the warm, beautiful, and kind wife to Uncle Jesse. She was not just a TV star, she was a staple. Loughlin was also the queen of the Hallmark Channel, starring in countless feel-good movies. She had a perfect, wholesome image. But here's the kicker. That squeaky clean image came crashing down in 2019. Loughlin and her husband, a fashion designer, were part of a massive college admissions scandal. It was a huge story that shocked everyone. You see, they were accused of paying $500,000 to a fixer. This was all to get their 2 daughters into the University of Southern California, a very fancy college. The worst part was how they did it. They faked photos to make it look like their daughters were star athletes on the rowing team, even though they did not play the sport. To put it mildly, the fallout was instant and brutal. Hallmark, a channel built on wholesome family values, fired her immediately. Netflix dropped her from the final season of Fuller House. After fighting the charges for a year, she eventually pleaded guilty and served time in federal prison. A prison sentence is pretty much a career ender in Hollywood, especially when the crime reinforces the idea that rich celebrities play by different rules. It's pretty wild to think an actress who played America's favorite aunt could fall so far. But as shocking as prison time is, our next star lost her entire show, one named after her, in the blink of an eye. 2. Roseanne Barr.
It came on like a freight train, huge in the ratings, making a lot of money for ABC. For them to so swiftly cancel this show, they're going to take a hit.
In the 1980s and 90s, Roseanne was a revolutionary show. It was one of the first sitcoms to show what a real working-class American family was like. They struggled with money, they argued, and they weren't perfect. At the center of it all was Roseanne Barr, seer, whose sharp, sarcastic humor made the show a massive hit. Decades later, in 2018, the show came back in a reboot. And believe it or not, it was a gigantic success. The Roseanne reboot was the #1 show on television, with tens of millions of people tuning in. Roseanne Barr was back on top of the world. It seemed like she could do no wrong. But then she did. In the middle of the night, she went on social media and posted a message. It was a terrible, racist comment about a former government official. When the sun came up, the world had seen her post. The backlash was fast and furious. The network, ABC, was in a terrible spot. What would they do? Before noon that same day, they made a shocking announcement. They had canceled the #1 show on television. Just like that, it was gone. The thing nobody tells you is that this decision cost the network an estimated $60 million in future ad money. That is how badly they wanted her gone. The network eventually brought the show back as The Connors, and they got rid of her character by saying she had passed away. Roseanne destroyed her entire legacy in a single night. But our next star destroyed his in just a few minutes, live on a comedy club stage. 3. Michael Richards.
I canceled myself out.
You canceled yourself.
Take an exodus.
On Seinfeld, maybe the most popular sitcom of all time, Michael Richards was a comedy legend. He played the wacky, wild-haired neighbor, Cosmo Kramer. He was a master of physical comedy, bursting through doors and falling in ways that made audiences cry with laughter. He was so good that he won 3 Emmy Awards for the role. When Seinfeld ended in 1998, everyone thought Michael Richards would become a huge movie star. But his career never quite took off. He had a new sitcom that failed quickly. He mostly stayed out of the spotlight. Then, in 2006, he decided to try stand-up comedy again. He was performing at a club in Los Angeles called the Laugh Factory. During his set, a few people in the audience started heckling him. This is normal for comedy clubs. What happened next was not. Richards completely lost his temper. He flew into a rage and started screaming at the audience members. He went on a long, angry rant, shouting horrible racial slurs over and over. What he didn't know was that someone in the audience was filming the entire thing on their cell phone. This was one of the first times a celebrity's worst moment was captured and went viral. The video was everywhere. It was awful to watch. His career just stopped. He went on The Late Show with David Letterman to apologize, but the appearance was seen as strange and awkward. He became toxic. No one wanted to hire an actor known for that kind of hateful outburst. He has only had a few tiny roles since. Richards' outburst was a total shock. But our next star had a meltdown that lasted for months, a public spectacle that cost him the highest-paying job on TV. 4. Charlie Sheen.
What are you a doctor of?
Some are saying that you're bipolar.
Wow, what does that mean?
I guess that, you're on 2 ends of the spectrum.
Wow.
For most of the 2000s, the biggest sitcom on the planet was 2.5 Men. It was a huge, rating-grabbing machine. And its star, Charlie Sheen, was the king of television. He was funny, charming, and audiences loved him. He was also the highest-paid actor on TV. Here is the wow factor. Reports say he was making almost $2 million for each single episode. He was on top of the world. But behind the scenes, Sheen was known for his very wild personal life. In 2011, his behavior started to get more and more strange. He had to stop production on his show because of his personal issues. Then, he went on a series of bizarre radio and TV interviews. He claimed he had tiger blood and Adonis DNA. He talked about winning. And then, he made his biggest mistake. He publicly insulted the creator and boss of his own show, Chuck Lorre. You see, you just can't do that. The network, CBS, had no choice. They fired him. They fired the highest-paid star from the biggest comedy on TV. This was a massive story. Sheen's firing triggered a $250 million lawsuit and the immediate loss of his 8-figure salary. The show continued without him, replacing him with actor Ashton Kutcher. Sheen later got another show, Anger Management, but it never came close to his old success. After he publicly shared his serious health status, the big Hollywood roles dried up completely. Sheen was an adult star who flew too close to the sun. But what happens when a beloved kid star gets so typecast, Hollywood can't see them as anything else? 5. Jaleel White.
Till Monday when the bank's open. Then I'll get all my cash out and buy gold from the laboratory and then donate him to the zoo.
But what if you get caught before then?
Did I do that? For an entire decade, that one phrase made Jaleel White one of the most famous people on earth. He played Steve Urkel on the hit sitcom Family Matters. Here's a crazy fact. He was only supposed to be a one-time guest star. But the moment he walked on screen with his high-pitched voice, suspenders, and snorting laugh, the audience went wild. He was so popular that he took over the entire show. Jaleel White was a pop culture icon. There were Urkel dolls, lunchboxes, and even a breakfast cereal. He was a phenomenon. The thing is, he played the part too well. When Family Matters finally ended after 9 seasons, Jaleel was a grown man. He was a talented actor who also played Urkel's cool, smooth alter ego, Stefan Urquell. But it didn't matter. In the eyes of Hollywood and the public, he was, and always would be, Steve Urkel. This is a classic case of typecasting. No one could see him as a leading man, a dad, or a serious dramatic actor. He was just Urkel. What many overlooked is that some of his former castmates have said he became difficult to work with as his fame grew, which didn't help his reputation. He has continued to work. He has done a lot of voice acting, most famously as the voice of Sonic the Hedgehog. He also appeared on Dancing with the Stars, but the major adult acting roles he wanted never came. Jaleel couldn't escape his one big character. Our next star had the opposite problem. She was on a huge show, but after it ended, her career just stalled for a very different reason. 6. Tatiana Ali.
Look, don't cry, Ashley. Come on. All right. We'll figure a way out of this, all right?
Thanks, Will. You're a saint.
We all watched Tatiana Ali grow up on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. She played Ashley Banks, the sweet, smart, and talented youngest daughter of the Banks family. She was a key part of one of the most beloved sitcoms of the 90s. As she got older on the show, she even launched a successful singing career with the hit song Daydreamin'. When the show ended, she had a bright future, but Tatiana made a choice that many child stars don't. Instead of jumping right into another acting job, she decided to go to college. And she didn't just go to any college. She went to Harvard University, one of the best schools in the world. She graduated in 2002 with a degree in African American Studies. But here's the thing nobody tells you about Hollywood. If you step out of the spotlight, even for a good reason, the industry often moves on without you. When she returned, the big roles just weren't there. She wasn't the hot new thing anymore, and she wasn't the cute kid from Fresh Prince. She has worked steadily, but mostly in smaller independent films and a lot of made-for-TV Christmas movies. She never had a big scandal. She never had a meltdown. She just chose education, and by the time she got back, Hollywood had found new stars to focus on. Tatiana chose education, and Hollywood moved on. But our next star's career was stopped not by choice, but by a scary health mystery. 7. Frankie Muniz.
There's a lot of things I have on my list that I've wanted to do since, acting, race car driving. I now play drums in a band called King's Foil.
In the early 2000s, Malcolm in the Middle was one of the cleverest shows on TV. It was about a boy genius named Malcolm who was stuck in a loud, crazy, and dysfunctional family. The star was Frankie Muniz. He was a huge child star nominated for Emmy and Golden Globe awards. He also starred in movies like Agent Cody Banks and Big Fat Liar. He was on track to be a huge adult star. But after Malcolm in the Middle ended in 2006, Frankie made a surprising decision. He largely quit acting to follow a different dream. He wanted to be a professional race car driver. He became very serious about it and competed in professional leagues. But that's not the main reason you don't see him in movies anymore. The real reason is much scarier. Frankie has had major health problems. Starting in 2012, he suffered a series of mini-strokes, also called transient ischemic attacks, or TIAs. These are very serious and can have lasting effects. Here is the most shocking wow factor. Frankie has revealed that he suffers from severe memory loss. He says he has almost no memory of starring in Malcolm in the Middle. He can't remember being on the show that made him famous. He says his wife has to write down what they do every day in a journal so he can remember his own life. Because of his health, he can't handle the long, stressful hours of a Hollywood set. Frankie's health problems forced him to stop. But our next star made a choice to step back. even though she was at the top of her game. 8. Kat Dennings.
Like, nothing changes in terms of, like, well, for me, nothing changed in our lives, really, but it felt really great.
Kat Dennings became famous for her very specific type of character. She was the cool, sarcastic, and world-weary girl with a deadpan sense of humor. She had a memorable role in the Marvel movie Thor and the 40-Year-Old Virgin. But her big break came with the hit sitcom Two Broke Girls. For 6 seasons, she played Max Black, a tough-talking, broke waitress in New York. The show was a big success. After it was canceled, she landed another show called Dollface, and even returned to the Marvel Universe for the WandaVision series. She was working all the time, but then she seemed to slow down. The truth is, Kat Dennings wasn't. Blacklisted, she seems to have chosen to step back from the Hollywood grind. She got married to musician Andrew WK, and recently had a baby. She has spoken about how the pressure of the industry is a lot, and she seems to be enjoying her new family life. She is also a perfect example of typecasting. She is so good at playing that sassy best friend role that casting directors might have a hard time seeing her as anything else. But for now, it seems like she is one star who just isn't cast much because she'd rather be at home. Kat Dennings was typecast by her style. Our next star was typecast by her beliefs, which made her a bad fit for modern Hollywood. 9. Melissa Joan Hart.
And he had a nickname for me. It was Big O. He'd call me Big Ovaries, so.
For anyone who grew up in the 90s, Melissa Joan Hart was a TV icon. First, she was the star of Clarissa Explains It All on Nickelodeon. She was the cool older sister everyone wanted. Then she immediately jumped to another massive hit, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which ran for 7 seasons. She wasn't just a star, she was a whole generation's childhood. After Sabrina, she continued to work, and later had another successful multi-season sitcom called Melissa and Joey with fellow 90s star Joey Lawrence. She seemed to have figured out the secret to a long career. But as she got older, Melissa became very open about her personal beliefs. She is a devout Christian and has become more and more open about her conservative political views. This is a very risky move for an actor in Hollywood. The industry is known for being very liberal and progressive. Because she is so outspoken, she has likely alienated many of the producers, writers, and network bosses who make casting decisions. The thing is, she's not really canceled. She has just placed herself in a different, smaller box. She now focuses on projects that match her values, like faith-based films, Christmas movies, and directing. Melissa's beliefs put her at odds with Hollywood. But our next star's career was derailed by something much darker. Serious accusations from his past. 10. Scott Baio.
Co-star Scott Baio and Nicole Eggert shows no signs of letting up. Eggert spoke out again today, standing by her claim that Baio molested her when she was a teenager.
In the 1970s and 80s, Scott Baio was one of the biggest teen idols on the planet. He got his start as Chachi Arcola on the massive hit Happy Days. He was so popular that he got his own spin-off, Joni Loves Chichi. When that ended, he got another hit sitcom, Charles in Charge, which ran for 5 seasons. He was the ultimate TV boyfriend. After his sitcom days ended, his career slowed down, but he stayed in the public eye. Like Melissa Joan Hart, he became one of the few very outspoken conservatives in Hollywood. He spoke at the Republican National Convention and was a strong supporter of Donald Trump. This alone made many in the industry turn away from him. But the real career ender was much worse. In 2018, during the height of the Me Too movement, his former Charles in Charge co-star Nicole Eggert made public accusations against him. She claimed he had engaged in serious misconduct with her when she was a minor. Another former co-star also came forward with similar stories. Baio has strongly denied every single one of the claims. But in modern Hollywood, accusations that serious are career poison. The terrible publicity, combined with his divisive politics, has made him totally uncastable for any major network or studio. Bayo's alleged past came back to haunt him, but our next star didn't need accusations from others. She was known for being her own worst enemy on set. 11. Shelley Long. Cheers is one of the all-time great sitcoms, and for its first 5 seasons, the entire show revolved around the electric, back-and-forth relationship between Sam Malone, played by Ted Danson, and Diane Chambers, played by Shelley Long. She was the smart, snobby, and hilarious barmaid. The show was a critical darling and a ratings giant. Shelley Long even won an Emmy Award for her role. She was the show's female lead. But here's the turn. She decided to leave the show at the absolute height of its popularity. She wanted to focus on her family and try to become a movie star. This was a huge, huge gamble. Her movie career never took off in the way she hoped. She had one hit with The Money Pit, but her other films flopped. Meanwhile, Cheers became even more popular after she left. But the thing nobody tells you is the rumor that has followed her for decades. It's been widely reported that she was very difficult on the set of Cheers. Her co-stars, including Ted Danson and Kelsey Grammer, have hinted in interviews that she was not easy to work with and that she didn't get along with the rest of the cast. When you leave a hit show and you get a reputation for being difficult, Hollywood stops calling. Her career faded away into guest spots and small TV movies. Shelley left her hit show and was seen as difficult, but our next star did the exact same thing, and his career vanished almost overnight. 12. McLean Stevenson. MASH was more than a sitcom. It was a cultural event. For 11 seasons, it was one of the most beloved and successful shows in history. In the early seasons, one of the main fan-favorite characters was Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, the bumbling, lovable commander of the 4177th Unit. He was played by McLean Stevenson. Stevenson was a huge part of the show's success and was nominated for an Emmy, but he was unhappy. You see, he felt he was just one part of a big group and he wanted to be the star. He thought he was the breakout, and he could have a much bigger career on his own. So, after season 3, he asked to be let out of his contract. The writers of MASH were not happy. They decided to give him an exit that no one would ever forget. In the season 3 finale, Henry Blake says his goodbyes and gets on a plane to go home to his family. The episode is almost over. Then Radar walks into the operating room and delivers a stunning message. Henry Blake's plane was shot down over the Sea of Japan. There were no survivors. It was one of the most shocking and heartbreaking moments in television history. Stevenson's post-MASH career was a total disaster. He starred in a series of new sitcoms, and every single one of them failed, some after just a few weeks. He became a running joke in the industry. He later admitted in interviews that leaving MASH was the single biggest mistake of his entire life. McLean's ego cost him his career. But our next star's post-show life was even more disastrous, filled with terrible decisions and legal trouble. Dustin Diamond. For all of the 1990s, if you were a kid, you watched Saved by the Bell, and you knew Samuel Screech Powers. Played by Dustin Diamond, Screech was the nerdy, goofy, and lovable sidekick to the cool kids at Bayside High. He was a key part of the show's humor. Here's a wild fact. He was the only cast member to be in every single version of the show, from its start as Good Morning, Miss Bliss, to the college years and the new class. But when the Saved by the Bell train finally ended, Dustin struggled. He was typecast as Screech and couldn't find serious work. He got into serious financial and legal trouble. Then he made a series of terrible decisions. First, he tried to cash in on his fame by releasing an infamous adult-themed video. It was a desperate move that just made him a punchline. Then he published a tell-all book called Behind the Bell. The book was full of nasty, shocking, and negative stories about his former co-stars, painting them all in a terrible light. It completely burned every bridge he had in Hollywood. His castmates were furious and said the stories were total lies. Years later, Dustin admitted the book was full of made-up stories written by a ghostwriter. He ended up serving time in jail for an incident at a bar. He was the only original cast member not invited back for the Saved by the Bell reboot. Sadly, he passed away from cancer in 2021. Dustin's tell-all book was a disaster. But our next star didn't just write a book. He started what many people are calling a modern-day cult. Andrew Keegan. If you watched TV or movies in the 90s, you knew Andrew Keegan. He was a top-tier teen heartthrob. He was the jerky actor Joey in 10 Things I Hate About You and played a bully on Boy Meets World. He was on Seventh Heaven and Party of Five. He was on the cover of all the teen magazines and had posters on bedroom walls everywhere. He was a successful working actor. But as he got older, the roles started to slow down. Then he did something so strange, it made Hollywood back away completely. He vanished from acting to start his own spiritual group. That's right. In 2014, news reports came out that Andrew Keegan had founded a New Age spiritual organization in Venice Beach, California. The group was called Full Circle, but news outlets like Vice and Vulture investigated it and called it something else. They called it a cult. They had strange ceremonies, talked about cosmic energy, and had a very charismatic leader, Andrew Keegan himself. The group even got in trouble with officials for minor violations. You can see why Hollywood producers might be hesitant to cast him. It's hard to take someone seriously as a romantic lead or a dramatic actor when he's also known for running a bizarre spiritual group. His acting career never recovered. Keegan's strange new life made him uncastable. Our next star didn't start a cult, but she also found herself stuck in a box she couldn't escape. Kyla Pratt. Kyla Pratt was one of the most successful and recognizable child stars of the late 90s and 2000s. She was the voice of the main character, Penny Proud, in the hit Disney Channel cartoon, The Proud Family. She also starred as Eddie Murphy's daughter in the Dr. Dolittle movie franchise. On top of that, she starred in her own successful sitcom, One-on-One, for 5 seasons. She was talented, funny, and had great comedic timing. She was a constant working actress for her entire childhood. She seemed destined to become a big adult star. But it never happened. So what went wrong? The answer is nothing. Kyla Pratt never had a big scandal. She never had a public meltdown. She never started a cult. She just grew up. This is another classic case of Hollywood typecasting. She was so good at playing the sassy daughter or the wise beyond her years teenager that producers and casting directors didn't seem to know what to do with her as an adult woman. Hollywood likes to put actors in a neat little box, and when a child star grows out of that box, the industry often just forgets about them. She has continued to work, most notably reprising her role in The Proud Family. Louder and Prouder reboot. But the major live-action leading roles she seemed destined for never came. Kyla was typecast by her own success. Our next star was a child actor from a massive movie, but his post-fame life was filled with pain. Jonathan Lipnicki. Did you know the human head weighs 8 pounds? That one line, delivered by a tiny kid with spiky hair and round glasses, stole the show in the blockbuster movie Jerry Maguire. That kid was Jonathan Lipnicki. He was adorable, he was funny, and he became an instant star. After Jerry Maguire, he was everywhere. He starred in the Stuart Little movies, The Little Vampire, and was on hit TV shows. He was one of the most successful and recognizable child actors of his generation. But as he got older and hit his teen years, the roles started to dry up. This is very normal for child actors. He decided to step away from the spotlight and live a normal life. He went to a regular public high school. But what he went through there was not normal. Jonathan has since revealed that he was horribly bullied every single day. Kids would make fun of him for being the movie kid and for his past fame. He has said the bullying was so bad that it caused him to suffer from severe anxiety and panic attacks for years. It completely destroyed his confidence. He stepped away from acting to heal. He found a new passion in martial arts and is now a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which he says helped him regain his confidence. He acts in small, independent films, but he chose his own mental health over the toxic Hollywood spotlight. Jonathan had to step away to heal from bullying. Our next star's on-set behavior was so chaotic, she was the one doing the bullying. Brett Butler. In the mid-1990s, Grace Under Fire was a monster hit. It was a top 10 show right up there with Home Improvement and Seinfeld. The show starred stand-up comedian Brett Butler as Grace Kelly, a smart, funny single mom and a recovering alcoholic working in a tough factory job. The show was praised for its honest and gritty portrayal of a blue-collar family. Brett Butler was nominated for 2 Golden Globe Awards and was one of the most powerful women on television. But behind the curtains, the show was a complete disaster. The recovering part of her character's story was, sadly, not true for Brett in real life. She was struggling with a severe and dangerous addiction to pain medication. Her behavior on the set became more and more erratic and terrible. She would show up late, if at all. She would forget her lines. She would have huge, screaming fights with the writers and producers. Here's the wow factor. It got so bad that the young actress who played her daughter, John Paul Stowe-Air, actually quit the show. He and his family said the set was an unsafe and toxic environment because of Brett's behavior. The show was finally canceled in 1998, not because of ratings, but because its star was impossible to work with. The word got out and her career was over. She lost all her money and at one point was reportedly living in a homeless shelter. Brett's personal demons made her difficult. Our next star wasn't difficult, but one bad movie role nearly ended his career before it began. Topher Grace. For 7 seasons, Topher Grace was the face of that 70s show. He played Eric Foreman, the witty, slightly nerdy, and lovable main character. The whole show revolved around him, his girlfriend Donna, and his group of friends in the basement. He was the show's anchor. That's why it was such a shock when he announced he was leaving the show before its 8th and final season. He wanted to break out of the sitcom box and become a major movie star. His big shot came almost immediately. He was cast as a major villain, Venom, in the huge blockbuster movie Spider-Man 3. This was his chance to prove he was a leading man. The problem? Fans and critics hated him in the role. They felt he was totally miscast as the dark, scary villain. The movie itself made a lot of money, but Topher's performance was torn apart. That one high-profile failure really hurt his image as a movie star. The big leading man roles he had left his show for never came. But here's the thing. Topher Grace doesn't seem to mind. He didn't get blacklisted. He just chose a different path. After the Spider-Man 3 backlash, he started taking on smaller, more interesting roles in independent films and supporting parts in bigger movies. He's not a superstar, but he's a working actor who chose a quieter life. Topher chose a quieter life. But our next star was forced into a quieter life after revealing the horrific truth about her time as a child actor. Jeanette McCurdy. For millions of kids, Jeanette McCurdy was a comedy icon. She played Sam Puckett, the tough, sarcastic, and buttersock-wielding best friend on the Nickelodeon mega-hit iCarly. She was so popular that when iCarly ended, she got her own spin-off, Sam and Cat, co-starring Ariana Grande. She was one of the biggest stars on the network. But when Sam and Cat was abruptly canceled after just 1 season, Jeanette disappeared. She didn't appear in the iCarly reboot, and fans wondered why. Then, in 2022, she revealed the shocking truth in a best-selling book with a stunning title, I'm Glad My Mom Died. The book told a heartbreaking and horrific story. Jeanette detailed the years of emotional and physical abuse she suffered at the hands of her own mother, who forced her into acting. She also described the terrible pressures and inappropriate situations she was put in as a child star at the network. Here is a truly unbelievable wow factor. Jeanette revealed that when she quit, the network offered her $300,000 in hush money to never publicly speak about her experiences there. She turned it down. Jeanette has officially quit acting for good. She says the work is a painful reminder of her traumatic childhood. So in this case, Hollywood didn't refuse her. She refused them.